Hey everybody, welcome to a brand new series I'm going to start working on here. Probably do two different series off of this game because it's just an awesome and fun game. I love roller coasters and why not? So, first off, I'm going to be doing a quick a tutorial series on RollerCoaster Tycoon 3 Platinum. Platinum is the version with all the expansion packs, so Soap, Wild, you can see it adds laser shows and water rides and all sorts of epic animal type stuff. Some screenshots here. Please do all these. So I'm just going to be doing basic tutorials on that. In case the tutorials in the game are a bit too confusing for some of you. I know that when I get a game, I usually like to jump right in and learn as I go. So if you're also one of those type of people, maybe watching these videos might help you get unstuck as far as trying to figure out how do I do this or anything, and it won't be too hold on a second. Sorry, my little brothers are getting lunch. Yes, I do. Everything but cheese. We're making sandwiches. Good stuff. Okay, so basically this is your basic interface. To start the game, you'll see play. This is where you go to career mode, sandbox, all sorts of fun stuff like that. Tools, this is just for you to do fun stuff, like design your own roller coasters just for the fun of it, which is pretty fun. Or scenario editor. That's where you can go in and change like career games, make your own made-up versions, options obviously, that changes the settings of games. Actually, let me check something. Let's turn down the music just a little bit so that you can hear my voice clearer. Not too low, obviously, because it's really good music. Game volume is good, UI volume. Okay, I've got some custom music in here from my music RollerCoaster Tycoon 3 folder. I'll show you how to set that up later, but it's pretty fun that you can add your own custom music into this game. And I know in RollerCoaster Tycoon 2 it was an experimental thing. They didn't quite put it all together, so you couldn't quite do that. I can take screenshots. You can also take movies with inside the game, but it won't record your voice, and it's really slow because it records frame by frame. So I'm using Fraps for this because it's a lot faster, and obviously you want to hear my voice and commentary on how to do things. It's got all my custom settings here for really fancy graphics, so we'll just get started. Alright, so tools. You've got the Peak Designer. That lets you design your own custom family groups, friend groups, whatever you want. You can name them whoever you want, based off real life people, based off people you know, I don't know. Whatever you want to do there, and you can design your own people and they'll visit your parks in-game. It's pretty fun. It's not entirely accurate because when you set, say if you go in here real quick, okay, like for instance, say one of my families here, Atkinsons, that happens to be my cousins, and aunt and uncle, but see, when you go in to edit your person, it'll have preferred ride intensity. That doesn't always accurately represent, what kind of rides they prefer. I mean, even when it's set to crazy, which is like the highest setting it can go to, I believe, they will ride the craziest of your coasters, but they won't always have the best nausea tolerance, so they might get sick, which doesn't necessarily accurately represent it, so that you might have problems with that. But other than that, it's pretty fun. Scenario editor. This... Whoops. I didn't mean to actually load that. Okay, I guess you'll get to see what the scenario editor is like, just briefly here. I'm going to go into really low frames per second as it loads this. This is the only disadvantage to the game. It takes a long time to load a lot of things, especially if you've got a lot of rides and people visiting the park from the last save. So yeah, this is what the scenario editor looks like. Basically with this, you can create your own theme park objectives, and you can set all sorts of things with the land and awards and how people approach it and all sorts of stuff. Actually, this wouldn't be too bad of a place to show you how to use the camera. So the basic camera is this. You move your mouse to the edge of the screen, and you can move to a different part of the park. You click down on the center mouse wheel and move your mouse, and you can rotate the view. If you scroll the mouse wheel, you can zoom in and out. So between all these controls, you've pretty much got complete views. Also, if you tilt the mouse down while you're holding down the mouse wheel, you can look down as if on ground level, and you can even zoom in while on that, and you can look into details on the park. That's the fun thing about this one. RollerCoaster Tycoon 2 was not three-dimensional. This is. It's pretty fun. So that's the basic camera controls. You can also use your left mouse button, or right mouse button, sorry, to click and drag it around to see where you are. So that's the basic camera controls. Pretty simple. You can also use Q and E to rotate if you prefer on the keyboard. Or if your mouse doesn't happen to have a mouse wheel, like say you're using a laptop and you don't have that mouse wheel, you can use Q and E, which is also just as good. Ooh, they've got chicken patty sandwiches for me for lunch today. Ooh, thank you guys.
You're welcome.
Delish. Anyway, so that's the basic camera controls. I won't go into the scenario editor right now. It's a bit complicated. I'm going to exit and we'll go to the simpler stuff. So that's the basics of camera control. That's what the scenario editor looks like. Coaster designer. This is pretty fun. You just go here, you have all the coasters unlocked, you can build whatever kind of coaster you want, however you want, with whatever ratings you want, ride it, test it, blow it up. They don't really care. Pretty fun. There's no guests in it. It's basically just a grid for you to build on with land. See that? I always have these, the grid lines don't show in game. There is an option to turn those off, but for the designer they're always there because it really helps you locate where your coaster is going. I'm not going to go too much into detail on this, other than you only have two basic controls in this area, and that's building rides and terrain, so adjusting the landscape and building rides so that you can build them underground, overground, through the ground, through mountains, through cliffs, through waterfalls, whatever you want. Terrain tools, honestly, I find really, really confusing. I'm going to do an entirely separate tutorial on that because you can do so much with it that it can be overwhelming. So we're not going to do that now, but that's the coaster designer. Building designer, self-explanatory. You take your scenery items, your sets of walls, roofs, and things, and you can place them anywhere you want on landscapes and save them as preset buildings for you to load in your later parks. It always has to initialize the park. I'm not sure why it has to go through so many loading processes. But anyway, it's basically the same as the RollerCoaster designer, except so you've got the delete tool and your scenery. So you've got all your scenery set up so you can build buildings and landscapes. And, oh, they even have the Mixmaster available here. I did not know that. Maybe I'll design my fireworks shows here. But yeah, anyway. So that's your basic tool set for the game. Play is pretty, is where you do all the fun stuff. So tutorial mode, that's where you've got tutorials for the main games here. So RCT 3, that's the original game. Soaked, that's the expansion pack where they add water slides, pools, water rides, and lasers. Wild is where they add all sorts of animal parks and zoos and some experimental design coasters. That one right there in the preview was just an experimental coaster. It's a prototype coaster that's in the works of real-world designers trying to get splitting tracks. I don't know if they'll ever succeed with it, but it's pretty cool. So see, it's got tutorials on how to do all this, but quite frankly, I find it simpler just to watch a video or figure it out yourself. Which is why I'm recording these tutorials. So I'm going to call these tutorials Coast to Success, because I'm going to show you how to, all the tips for going to Tycoon. So yeah. Soaked has the special tutorials on pools and lasers. Wild has special tutorials on animal enclosures and caring for animals and extras. Miscellaneous information that you don't know what fits in the other categories. I guess that's why they did that. Anyway, career mode. This is where you try to become a tycoon. As you can see, I've completely aced the original game. 100% complete at Princess level, Entrepreneur level, and Tycoon level. Tycoon level is the hardest objective level to beat it at. I've done that in all of these, Soaked, Wild, all of them. It was a blast. Wild took a little while longer because it was really difficult. Which is good. I like a nice challenge. So, that's your career mode. I'm going to start fresh ones for tutorials on this and stuff. But, so that's your basic career mode. And you have Sandbox mode. Sandbox, you can start a game of just a flat plain park. You can build whatever you want. There's no money limits. And you can just build the park of your dreams if you basically want. Or the park of nightmares. I don't know. Whichever you would prefer to do. I don't see why you would build a park of nightmares, though. It seems pretty bad. Well, I mean, unless you're theming it to, like, Halloween and haunted stuff, which you can do in here. I guess then nightmares would make sense. Oh, wow. That seems like it has a lot of roller coasters in it. I don't remember that park. Anyway. I can show you the basics of Sandbox real quick. Chicken salad sandwich. Or I mean chicken patty. And so there you are. It looks pretty similar to the scenario editor. The only difference is that, in case you're wondering, this guy is the park inspector. He is in every single one of your parks. Will give you advice on how to make your parks improved. Try to listen to his thoughts. I usually have them set right here over this so that it sends his thoughts into this console so that the messages will appear here tell you what you could improve in your park. Follow his advice. Very good advice. Will definitely help you on your road to Tycoon. But anyway, Sandbox, you'll notice money unlimited. This is because you can build whatever you want in here. You can do whatever you want. It's a ginormous park. Even I've never used all the space in this, and I don't think you can expand it. No, you can't. But yeah, it needs to expand it. You've got so much space. So yeah, so this is basically what the guests look like as they come into your either boring empty park or park full of rides, whatever it may happen to be. This will allow you to see where your custom families or whoever you happen to make in a peak designer, when they come into the park, you'll see all my families are coming into here. I made a whole bunch of fun people based off my real life family, and just some fictional ones like based off Phineas and Ferb. Anyway, so yeah, you can toggle that on and off to see where your custom people are going. This will tell you when fireworks shows and laser shows and water jet shows are going on. This will tell you if an animal has escaped and if you need to tranquilize it to get it back in its cage. This is the weather. Quite frankly, it doesn't really affect much except for the peeps, because obviously 62 degrees and nice and bright and sunny, they're going to want some sunglasses, sunscreen, that kind of stuff. So kind of helps when you want to put in stalls or shops for them to get that kind of thing at. This is your park rating. Oh no, that's the guests in park, sorry. So, and park rating. So basically, the guests in park, some objectives require you to get a certain number of guests and hold it for a certain amount of time, or just get a certain amount of guests. Pretty easy to explain. This is your park rating. Obviously, the closer it is to the thumbs down, the worse your park is. The closer it is to the thumbs up, the better your park is. That's usually calculated based off your ride excitement and intensity. The more rides you have that are more intense and exciting, that adds to your park rating. It also is calculated based off the happy guests. If your guests are unhappy for some reason, that will make it go down. If they're happier, it'll make it go up. The number of guests will also add to your park rating. How often your rides aren't broken down, very key, will also add to your park rating. The higher total number, the better you are off. Also, litter and vomit, disgusting stuff floating around your park all over the paths, that will also subtract from your park rating. Try to keep your parks clean. It's basics on that. Finances, I won't get into that because this is Sandbox. You don't need to worry about that. This is a mode that allows you to change whether the park is in always nighttime, good for fireworks shows and stuff, both night and day, goes through a full cycle, or just daytime. I don't think that option's enabled in career mode, but in Sandbox and Scenario Editor you can do that. Also, for objectives, this is what your objectives window would look like in career mode. It would put a description of the scenario here, kind of help you. But obviously in Sandbox, it doesn't really matter. You have no objectives anyway. Apprentice, so this is the beginning objectives. What it would list what you would have to do for that. Entrepreneur, what you would have to do for that. That's locked until you beat Apprentice. Tycoon's locked till you beat Entrepreneur, and so forth. Pretty simple. Right? Okay, now let's get to some actual stuff in tutorials. You can also save it, load games for that. Sandbox is pretty good. Custom scenario, that's where you load and play your custom scenarios that you've designed in the scenario editor. I don't actually have any design here. Maybe I'll do a tutorial on that later. So that's the basics of your interface, the way you play the game in RollerCoaster Tycoon 3. Now I'm going to do some tutorials on how you actually play the game, because that's what you all want to do. That's the fun part. As well as taking care of guests, riding rides, whatever you may happen to do. But for now, that ends this first tutorial. Coast of RollerCoaster Tycoon 3 Platinum tutorials, Coast to Success. I'll see you in the next one.